Thank you very much. It's actually a wonderful building to be sitting in, facing you, because although you are raked up in the most extraordinary fashion so that I can see every single person, from here I feel as if I'm in some sort of lopsided building where all of you, or most of you, are on that side, and there are all these spaces on this side. It's quite a peculiar feeling. I'm supposed to be having the job of introducing this symposium, which is quite a task. It's a sort of warm-up act, I suppose. So it's a bit like, for those of you who know the Radio 4 program In Our Time, this is the bonus material that you get. Instead, in the In Our Time program, you get the bonus material at the end. Somehow you're going to get the bonus material at the beginning. It's the unexpected bit. So, because we have a double theme this year, I thought I would start with two stories, probably well known to all of you. One of them is certainly my favorite story, probably of all time. They're both stories of the Mullah Nasruddin. So the first story is that one day the Mullah Nasruddin went into a tea house, his favorite tea house, and he said, "The moon is more useful than the sun." There was an old man sitting at the back who said, "Why is that, Mullah?" And Mullah Nasruddin replied, "Because we need the light more during the night than during the day." I've always liked this story because it's so sort of evocative of many, many things could be said about it, but the image is just fabulous. The second story is definitely my favorite and has been with me for, I don't know, 40, almost 50 years probably. And I discovered recently, looking it up on the internet just to find the unexpurgated version, that it's also the favorite of a huge number of people. So it goes like this. There was a man walking home late one night, and he sees a very anxious Mullah Nasruddin down on his knees, crawling on his hands in the road. And he's searching frantically under the street light for something on the ground. So this passerby, who happens to know the Mullah, says, "Mullah, what have you lost?" And Mullah Nasruddin says, very anxious, "I'm looking for my key." "Well, I'll help you look," the man says, being a very generous, good Samaritan. And he joins Mullah Nasruddin in the search. And soon, both of them are down on their hands and knees under the street light, looking for the lost key. After some time, the man thinks, I wonder. So he asks Mullah Nasruddin, "Mullah, tell me, do you remember exactly where you dropped the key?" Nasruddin waves his arm towards the darkness and says, "Yes, over there in my house. I lost the key somewhere inside my house." This man is shocked and exasperated, and he jumps up. I mean, he's been looking for this key for 10 minutes in not pleasant circumstances, and he shouts at Mullah Nasruddin, "Why the hell are you searching for the key out here in the street?" "Well, because there's more light here than inside my house." While I was searching on the net for this unexpurgated version, I came across a really extraordinary retelling of it, where the key is not in the house, but it's in the dark under the bushes. And it was used to discuss the reality of decision-making in organizations. So to my shock, this story had suddenly transmogrified into a question of broadening awareness from the familiar expert to a better understanding of risk by taking into consideration factors which were not obvious. It was away from the opinions of the stupid individual to collective decision making. It was away from the time of the decision to the process of making decisions themselves. So it was a fascinating retelling of a very well-known story, which has an esoteric point, as we all know, but with a subtly different agenda going on. Well, what is this key to the house that we have lost? I suppose if we're wise, then we already know that the key to life is somewhere in our own house. And as you all know, the great image of the house is the image of not only the soul, but it's the image of the heart. So here we are, searching outside in the light. Well, we know we can see here. Everything is very clear here. We know what we're doing. We're in control. And yet, the only finding is going to be inside, in the dark, where we know we can't see. So we're immediately in this peculiar situation. I brought these two stories because I thought they are quite illuminating about light and knowledge. So in the one case, we're looking for something, we know what we're looking for, but we're looking in the wrong place. We're looking in the light. And in the other case, we know where we've lost something, but it's in the dark, and there's no light present there. So maybe we can start just by distinguishing two aspects of light, which for Ibn Arabi are very fundamental. Not only is exterior light something that shows us how things appear, but for him light is synonymous with existence and with manifestation. So he writes, God brought us out from the darkness of non-existence into the light of being. So we became light by permission of our Lord on the path of the inaccessible and praiseworthy. And then he transfers us from light to the darkness of hayra, dazzlement or perplexity, which is a wonderful image of our progress through life. So light and existence, light and being are synonymous. Interior light is the second kind of light, a light by which we apprehend, the light of consciousness, the starting point of perception. So we can speak of the light of faith, the light of knowledge, and so on. And we also know that light is one of the divine names. As it says in the Quran, God is the light of the heavens and the earth. So, in terms of being, that kind of light has not appeared. What appears is the veils. Now, apart from these two stories and a little comment, I wanted also to mention something from this wonderful book, which several people here have been studying, Ibn Arabi's Kitab al-Isfar, The Secrets of Voyaging. I've been reading this with a group of students for several months now, and it's been sitting with me, as I think it's been sitting with many people who've been reading it. And one particular passage jumped out at me in thinking about what I could say today that would be useful. It comes in the voyage of Noah. Now Noah is, for Ibn Arabi, one of the most extraordinary characters. He's known as the first envoy, the first one sent to a people, but he has a quality that is quite unmatched by others. You all know the story that he was responsible pretty much for the destruction of a whole world, and most of his people went with him, and only the ones on the ark survived. Ibn Arabi's take on this story is so unusual that it's really worth just bringing out, especially in the light of light and knowledge today. Ibn Arabi says that each of the prophets has a sign, has an ayah, a kind of miraculous piece of technology that belongs to them. In the case of Noah, unlike what we might think, because we might think that the ark or shipbuilding was Noah's specific predilection, in fact he says, no, it's not at all like that. It's nothing to do with building an ark. His sign is the tanur. Most of you who've had tandoori chicken have had chicken from a tanur, originally a clay oven. So this is the sign of Noah. This is Noah's great gift to humankind. Why? It's an extraordinary thing to say, apart from anything else. I have no idea whether clay ovens originated with Noah, but we're told that they did. Why the tanur, or the tandoor? A clay oven built of water and clay, those are the only two ingredients to make it, still used in the Mediterranean today, and the easiest way to build an oven. In fact, a very simple way. Of course, an oven is something rather different to an open fire for lots of reasons. First of all, it affects the transformation of the food from the raw to the cooked in a very effective manner and in a way that you cannot do on an open fire. Think of baking bread and so on. It's not only a cooking process, but it's a cooking that is hidden from the eye of the observer. Something that goes on within the oven. It's an alchemical process, and alchemy is very much tied up with, in Ibn Arabi's view, the whole story of Noah and the meaning of Noah. The esoteric meaning of the oven is the inner transformation of the human being, who is made, of course, like the oven, of water and clay. And the fire inside is what effects this transformation of the raw ingredients into something cooked. You'll realize in this image that for those of you who've read the beginning of the Masnawi by Rumi, we're talking here about the fire of love. And as he says right at the beginning of the Masnawi, whoever doesn't have this fire, may he be nothing. And then a little later on, no one who is raw can understand the state of the cooked. So already we have a hierarchy from the raw to the cooked, and as you know, he said of himself, I was raw, I became cooked, and then I was burnt. One other factor to bear in mind in this image, and the reason why I'm bringing it now, is that fire, nar in Arabic, is directly related to nur, light. Now, Ibn Arabi specifies that this clay oven, this tanur, this furnace, is the sign of Noah, his prophetic technology. He's the one who transformed his people. He produced a new world after the flood. But the most interesting thing that Ibn Arabi has to say about this tanur is what it really is. Now, he plays a little word game, as is very common with Ibn Arabi. He says it's not just tanur, one word, it's really two words. Ta-nur. Nur is light. So then he says there's something being added to the light. This ta is, for him it stands for tamam, for those of you who know Arabic, completion. This is the ta of completion. So there is the light, which is pure, to which something has been added to make it complete. And a little later on, we suddenly find out that in fact, the existence of the body is what has completed the light, which is an astonishing thing to be saying, because normally when we think of body and light, we see them as opposites. For Ibn Arabi, the world is not built like that. So the light of being is completed through the very existence of the body. I wanted to read you a small passage because this theme seems to me to be so crucial to understand in our understanding of light. Of course, there is a slight rub. The existence of the body immediately means that there are multiple aspects, colors, if you like, in the light imagery, or differentiation, facets, elements, earth, air, fire, and water. And all of these appear to be some sort of a cover over the singularity of light. So knowledge becomes essential, knowledge of what this situation really is. How come we are in this world of bodies, and yet we're informed that light is singular and being is singular? So what's the relationship between the multiple on the one hand and the singularity on the other hand? The water of our clay is like Noah bringing unqualified light in the form of the furnace or the oven. So from Noah's perspective, he knew that actually all things are really light. His people rejected that knowledge because for them, light, fire, water, they were different substances. So this is Ibn Arabi's explanation. From Noah's perspective, it was light. From their perspective, these things were different. And therefore, because they rejected the living knowledge, and life is water, that's why they were drowned in the water. So I just want to read a short passage from this book, which is along these lines. Water is like knowledge in that life comes from both, with respect both to the sensory realm and the suprasensory. This is why Noah's people perished by water, because of their rejection of knowledge. And their destruction came from the tanur, because they disbelieved only in the water of the furnace. They rejected the knowledge that Noah conveyed to them orally in the language of the furnace of his body. And I'll just stop there for a minute. That's an astonishing thing to say. The language of the furnace of his body. The language of the body as a tanur, as a clay oven. This is a Rumi image, actually. the fire of love is burning within the tanur of this clay, of this human clay. He goes on, his people did not know that he was translating its meaning, which is unqualified light. They were veiled from the tanur by the tanur's water. So they saw the water as one of the elements instead of seeing it as life itself. I think that possibly Todd Lawson later on today will be talking about water and knowledge, so I won't say any more. It's just to say this image of the tanur is very much related to that discussion. They did not know that it was light, nur, to which the ta of the completion of the human constitution had been added by the existence of the body. So through the body, human beings have arrived, and the human constitution completes the whole system. That's basically what Ibn Arabi is saying. So this tanur is an extraordinary image of, first of all, alchemy and the process of transformation, and at the same time, it's an example of how light, unqualified light, separates into these different elements. I'm keeping to time. So finally, I want to just leave you with one little line which really jumped out at me when I was reading something recently. It's in the context of Ibn Arabi talking about God guides to his light whoever he pleases. This is in the Quran. And he says something very simple, but very, very profound. Whoever God does not give a light to has no light. All that has mercy upon you, and the word he's using here is rather unusual, means all that lets you live, all that spares you, all that gives you salvation, and Noah's voyage is salvation, all that allows you to go on being is the being of light. Thank you very much.